Imagine this: a man meets a woman who carries herself with quiet confidence, her energy calm yet magnetic, as if she knows something he doesn't. Now, let me ask you, have you ever wondered why some women seem to captivate effortlessly, while others chase endlessly only to be ignored? Here's the truth: men are hardwired to crave freedom, and paradoxically, they are drawn to women who embody it. Detachment isn't about playing games or being cold, it's about understanding your worth so deeply that you stop seeking validation. But here's the catch: when you master detachment, you'll not only change how men see you, but how you see yourself, and that shift could change everything. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly why the power of letting go is your ultimate key to attraction. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, staring at your reflection. You wonder, am I enough? Society has woven countless stories around us, from magazine covers to social media posts, convincing us that worth is something earned through appearance, status, or someone else's approval. But what if I told you your worth is not negotiable? What if it was never about adding something to yourself, but about peeling away the layers of self-doubt and rediscovering the unshakable core of who you are? Stay with me, because the moment you grasp this truth, everything in your life will change: your relationships, your confidence, and the way the world responds to you. Now, let's be honest, how many times have you stayed in a situation where you felt undervalued just because you were afraid of what might happen if you walked away? We've all been there, haven't we? Here's the terrifying part: every time you settle, you're teaching the world how to treat you. You're sending a silent message that says, I'm okay with less, but deep down, you know you're not. Deep down, there's a voice screaming for more. The fear of being alone, the fear of not being chosen, often drowns out that voice. Let's stop and ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did we let the world convince us that our worth is tied to someone else's attention? The truth is, it starts early. Maybe you were taught to be nice, to always put others first, to work for approval. And you did it, didn't you? You smiled when you didn't want to, stayed quiet when you wanted to speak up, and begged yourself into a shape that would make someone else comfortable. But where did it get you? Let me tell you something: a woman who knows her worth doesn't shrink herself to fit into someone else's expectations. She expands to fill the space she deserves. Imagine what your life could look like if you stopped asking, am I good enough for him? And started asking, is he good enough for me? And here's where it gets exciting: when you truly know your worth, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing, stop clinging, stop overanalyzing every little interaction. Instead, you radiate an energy that says, I'm whole on my own, and I choose who I allow into my life. That energy is irresistible. Why? Because confidence is rare. Think about it: how many people in your life can you honestly say are unapologetically themselves? Probably not many, right? And that's why a confident, self-assured woman stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. But let me pause here for a moment. Have you ever been in a situation where you started to stand up for yourself, only to have someone call you difficult or too much? Isn't it funny how the moment you stop being convenient for someone else, they try to pull you back down? Here's the twist: those moments aren't failures, they're proof you're stepping into your power. People who benefit from you doubting yourself will always resist your growth. Don't take it personally, take it as a sign you're on the right path. Now, let's dive deeper. Knowing your worth isn't just about saying I'm amazing and leaving it at that. It's about action. It's about boundaries. It's about looking at your life and asking, what am I tolerating that I shouldn't be? Here's a secret: every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your values, you're saying no to yourself. And that no chips away your confidence little by little, until one day you don't recognize the person in the mirror. But here's the good news you can rebuild. Right now, in this moment, you can decide to stop settling. Think about a diamond. Do you ever see a diamond begging someone to recognize its value? Of course not. Its worth isn't up for debate. And yet, how often do we beg for someone to see what we bring to the table? Here's your reminder: you are the diamond. And diamonds don't beg, they shine. But here's the challenge: shining isn't easy when the world keeps trying to dim your light. What would it take for you to refuse to dim yourself any longer? Now, let me ask you a funny question. Have you ever seen a cat begging for attention? Probably not. Cats are masters of detachment. They know their worth and don't chase after anyone. And somehow we all end up chasing after them. It's a little ridiculous, isn't it? But it's also a clue. There's power in not needing someone else's approval. So what if you could channel that energy in your own life? And here's the cliffhanger. What if the very thing you've been chasing is the thing keeping you from the life you truly deserve? Picture this: you wake up one day and realize you've been living on autopilot, going through the motions, pouring your energy into everything and everyone except yourself. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Not just existing, not just getting by, but truly thriving, driven by a purpose so powerful that it made your heart race with excitement? Here's the harsh truth: if you're not growing, you're standing still, and the world doesn't wait for anyone. But the moment you decide to focus on your growth, to pour your energy into becoming the best version of yourself, you shift the entire game. And that decision, it could be the turning point of your life. Let's get real for a second. How often do we put our dreams on hold because we're too busy meeting someone else's needs or living up to their expectations? We tell ourselves, I'll focus on me once everything else is sorted out, but guess what? That moment never comes. Life keeps piling on responsibilities, distractions, and excuses until one day you look back and wonder where all the time went. It's scary, isn't it? The thought that you could spend your whole life prioritizing everything except your own potential. Now, let's flip that fear into excitement, because here's the good news: you have the power to rewrite your story at any moment. Imagine what could happen if you started channeling all the energy you've been wasting on things that don't serve you into things that truly light you up. I think about the skills you could master, the passions you could pursue, the life you could build. The possibilities are endless, but only if you're willing to take the first step. But let's pause for a moment. Do you know what's holding most people back? It's not a lack of talent or opportunity, it's the belief that they're not worthy of investing in themselves. And that belief, it's a lie. You are worthy. You deserve to grow, to thrive, to create a life that feels like it was designed just for you. And here's the kicker: when you focus on your growth, everything around you changes. Your confidence skyrockets, your energy becomes magnetic, and you start attracting opportunities and people who align with your vision. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a plant try to grow in the wrong environment? It struggles, doesn't it? No matter how much potential it has, it can't thrive. It's surrounded by things that drain its energy. The same is true for you. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, distractions, or people who don't support your growth, how can you expect to flourish? It's time to take a hard look at your environment and ask yourself, is this helping me grow, or is it holding me back? And speaking of distractions, let's address the elephant in the room. How often do we sabotage our growth by wasting time on things that don't matter? Be honest, how many hours have you spent scrolling through social media, comparing yourself to people who aren't even living the lives they post about? It's ridiculous when you think about it, isn't it? But here's the thing: every moment you spend comparing yourself to someone else is a moment you could have spent building the life you want. So what's stopping you from putting down the phone and picking up a book, a new skill, or a project that excites you? Now, here's where things get really exciting. When you focus on your growth, you tap into a version of yourself you didn't even know existed. You start to see challenges as opportunities, setbacks as lessons, and failures as stepping stones to success. It's like unlocking a superpower you didn't realize you had. And the best part, growth isn't just about achieving goals, it's about who you become in the process. Imagine looking back a year from now and barely recognizing the person you are today, because you've grown so much. But let's not sugarcoat it. Growth isn't always easy. There will be moments when it feels uncomfortable, when the old version of you tries to pull you back into familiar patterns. That's when you have to remind yourself why you started. Think of growth like a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. It's a struggle, yes, but without that struggle, the butterfly would never be strong enough to fly. So the next time you feel resistance, instead of running from it, lean into it. That's where the magic happens. And let's be clear, focusing on your growth doesn't mean becoming selfish or abandoning the people you care about. It means showing up as the best version of yourself so you can inspire and uplift those around you. Think of it this way: you can't pour from an empty cup. The more you invest in your own growth, the more you'll have to give to others. Here's a little thought experiment for you. If you could wake up tomorrow with any skill, any level of confidence, or any opportunity, what would it be? Now imagine what your life would look like if you decided, right now, to start working toward that vision. How would it feel to know that every step you take is bringing you closer to the person you've always wanted to be? And here's the cliffhanger: what if the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is a decision? What if everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of focusing on your growth? Picture this: you're sitting in silence after a heated conversation, your mind racing with questions. Why did they say that? Do they even care about me? What did I do wrong? Your heart feels heavy, your mood swings wildly, and suddenly their actions control your entire emotional state. Sound familiar? Now let me ask you, what would your life look like if instead of being tossed around by someone else's words or actions, you could stand firm, calm, and unshaken? Mastering emotional independence is not just a skill, it's a superpower. It's the ability to reclaim your peace, your energy, and your life, regardless of what anyone else does. Let's start by confronting the fear that holds so many of us back. We're often terrified of losing people, of being left behind, or of not being good enough. That fear keeps us clinging to relationships, chasing approval, and bending ourselves out of shape just to avoid discomfort. But here's the harsh reality: the more you depend on someone else to regulate your emotions, the more power you give them over your happiness. Imagine handing the keys to your peace of mind to someone who doesn't even know how to drive it safely. Scary, isn't it? Now let's dive deeper. Have you ever noticed how quickly a child's mood can shift depending on whether they're praised or scolded? As adults, we like to think we've outgrown that, but have we? How many of us are still seeking approval, still letting a single comment or a lack of attention dictate our self-worth? Here's a pattern interrupt for you. What if I told you that the most emotionally independent people don't chase approval because they already know their value? They don't rely on others to tell them they're enough because they've done the inner work to believe it. But let's not sugarcoat it. Mastering emotional independence isn't easy. It requires confronting the uncomfortable truth that you might be using relationships, achievements, or external distractions to avoid facing yourself. I think about it: how many times have you scrolled through your phone looking for a text or just to feel a tiny hit of validation? It's a habit, isn't it? A habit that keeps you dependent. But here's the twist: the moment you break that cycle, the moment you stop looking outward for reassurance, something incredible happens. You start looking inward, and that's where real growth begins. Here's a question to reset your attention: why do we give so much power to people who don't even understand us fully? It's like letting a stranger write the script for your life. Ridiculous, right? And yet, we do it all the time. Emotional independence starts with reclaiming that pen. It's about saying, I get to decide how I feel, how I respond, and what I carry with me. Imagine the weight that would lift off your shoulders if you stopped carrying everyone else's opinions around like they were gospel. But let's take it a step further. Emotional independence isn't just about protecting yourself from negativity, it's also about unlocking your full potential. When you're no longer tied down by the need for validation, you free up mental and emotional energy to focus on what truly matters to you. Think of it like clearing out a cluttered closet. Once you get rid of the junk that doesn't serve you, you make room for things that align with your goals and values. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Many people fear that becoming emotionally independent will make them seem selfish or distant. But the opposite is true. When you're emotionally independent, you're not reacting out of fear or insecurity. You're able to show up as your authentic self, to give love freely without strings attached, and to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than dependency. Isn't that what we all want? But here's the catch: it takes practice. Emotional independence doesn't happen overnight. It starts with small intentional steps like setting boundaries, learning to self-soothe, and challenging the beliefs that keep you stuck in patterns of dependence. And yes, there will be moments when it feels uncomfortable, even scary. But remember, this growth and comfort cannot coexist. Every time you choose to face discomfort, instead of avoiding it. You're building emotional resilience. And let's talk about resilience for a moment. Emotional independence doesn't mean you won't feel hurt, disappointment, or sadness. Those emotions are part of being human. But it does mean you won't let those feelings consume you or dictate your actions. Imagine being able to acknowledge your pain without being defined by it. Imagine being able to say, "This hurts, but I'm still in control of how I move forward." That's the kind of strength that can't be shaken by anyone or anything. Here's another thought. How often do we confuse attachment with love? We think needing someone to feel whole is a sign of deep connection, but in reality, it's a sign of dependency. True love, whether for yourself or someone else, is rooted in freedom. It's the freedom to choose to grow and to thrive without feeling like your happiness is tied to someone else's actions. Now, let me leave you with this. What if the very peace and power you've been searching for have been within you all along, just waiting for you to claim them? What if mastering emotional independence isn't about changing who you are, but about uncovering who you've always been? Have you ever felt the ache of needing someone so deeply that it consumes your thoughts? It starts subtly, maybe a text left unanswered, a tone that feels off, or a moment where you sense their attention shift. Before you know it, your mind spirals, replaying every detail, searching for signs, craving reassurance. Let me ask you, how much of your life have you given away to this feeling? Neediness isn't just about longing, it's about losing yourself in the process. But what if I told you there's a way out? A way to reclaim your power, your peace, and your sense of self without losing the connections that matter most. Here's a truth that might sting. Neediness pushes away the very things you're desperate to hold on to. Think about it. Have you ever watched someone cling too tightly to a relationship, a job, or an idea? It's suffocating, isn't it? There's a reason for that. When you're needy, you radiate desperation, and desperation is the fastest way to repel what you want. It's like chasing a butterfly. The harder you run after it, the further it flies. But when you stand still, calm and confident, it lands on your shoulder effortlessly. Now let's dive deeper. Neediness doesn't come from nowhere, it's rooted in fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. These fears are powerful, and they can make even the most confident person feel small. But here's the twist: fear is a liar. It tells you that you need someone else to complete you, to validate you, to make you whole. And as long as you believe that, you'll stay trapped in a cycle of dependency. But what if we flip the script? What if, instead of needing someone, you chose to want them? There's a world of difference between the two. Need is about survival, about filling a void. Want is about choice, about sharing your life with someone because they add value, not because you're incomplete without them. Can you feel the shift in energy? Want is powerful, need is draining. Let me pause here and ask you something. How often do you confuse love with dependency? We've all seen those romantic movies where the characters declare, "I can't live without you." It sounds passionate, doesn't it? But let's be real for a moment. What kind of love is that? True love isn't about needing someone to breathe. It's about choosing to stand beside them while still standing on your own 2 feet. Isn't that what we all truly desire? Here's where it gets exciting. When you let go of neediness, you open the door to a new kind of connection. One that's built on mutual respect, trust, and freedom. Imagine being in a relationship where you don't have to second guess every interaction, where you don't feel the constant pull of insecurity, where you can simply be yourself. That's what happens when you step out of neediness and into self-assurance. But let's not gloss over the hard part. Breaking free from neediness isn't easy. It requires a deep look inward, a willingness to face the parts of yourself that crave external validation. I think about it. How often do you find yourself seeking reassurance, whether it's through a text, a compliment, or a sign of affection? It's like feeding a fire that never goes out. The more you fuel it, the more it consumes. But what if you could extinguish that fire? What if you could find your sense of security within yourself instead of relying on someone else to provide it? Let me throw in a pattern interrupt here. Have you ever noticed how confident people seem to attract everything effortlessly? It's almost unfair, right? But here's their secret. They don't need anyone to validate their worth. They know who they are, what they bring to the table, and they don't chase after what isn't meant for them. That kind of energy is magnetic. And the best part, it's something you can cultivate for yourself. Let's talk about boundaries for a moment. Neediness often thrives in the absence of boundaries. When you're needy, you overextend yourself, saying yes to things that drain you, just to keep the peace or gain approval. But here's the thing, every time you sacrifice your boundaries, you're teaching others that your needs don't matter. And that's a dangerous lesson. Imagine how your life would change if you started saying no to things that don't align with your values, and yes, to the things that nourish your soul. But here's the twist, letting go of neediness doesn't mean shutting people out or refusing to care. It's about caring in a way that's healthy, balanced, and free from desperation. It's about giving without expecting anything in return, loving without losing yourself, and being okay whether someone stays or goes. Think about that for a moment. How freeing would it be to love without fear, to connect without clinging, to give without depleting yourself? And let's not forget the role of self-care. Neediness often stems from neglecting your own needs while prioritizing someone else's. When was the last time you truly took care of yourself, not out of obligation, but out of love? When you prioritize your own well-being, you send a powerful message to the world: I am enough as I am. As I am. And that message, it's irresistible. Now, here's the cliffhanger. What if the very thing you're holding on to so tightly is the thing keeping you from the peace, love, and fulfillment you deserve? What if letting go is the key to unlocking a life where you no longer need to chase, because everything you've ever wanted starts to flow effortlessly toward you? Imagine this: you walk into a room and immediately feel the energy shift. People glance your way, intrigued but unsure what to expect. There's something about you, an air of mystery, a confidence that keeps them guessing. You don't follow a predictable pattern, and that unpredictability makes you unforgettable. Now let me ask you, when was the last time you truly surprised someone? Not with a gift or a gesture, but with who you are. Staying unpredictable isn't just about keeping others interested, it's about living a life that's vibrant, dynamic, and full of possibility. But let's get real for a moment. Predictability is comfortable, isn't it? It feels safe to follow routines, to stick to to avoid taking risks. But here's the harsh truth: comfort is the enemy of growth. Think about it. How many opportunities have you missed because you stayed in your comfort zone? How many relationships have grown stale because they fell into a monotonous rhythm? Predictability might feel secure, but it's a slow death for excitement, connection, and self-discovery. Here's where the fear sets in. The idea of being unpredictable can feel risky. It challenges everything we're taught about fitting in, about being reliable, about playing by the rules. But here's the twist: staying unpredictable doesn't mean being erratic or unreliable. It means being unafraid to evolve, to surprise, to break the mold. It's about keeping life exciting, not just for others, but for yourself. Imagine waking up every day not knowing exactly how it will unfold, but being excited to see where your choices take you. That's the power of unpredictability. Let's pause for a second. Think about the people who captivate you the most. Are they the ones who do the same thing day in and day out, who always say exactly what you expect them to say? Of course not. They're the ones who keep you on your toes, who challenge your perceptions, who make you wonder, what will they do next now? Imagine being that person, not to impress others, but to step fully into your own potential. But here's where it gets exciting. Staying unpredictable isn't just about external actions, it's about internal transformation. It's about challenging your own assumptions, breaking free from habits that no longer serve you, and daring to see yourself in a new light. Think about it. How often do you box yourself into an identity, telling yourself, this is who I am, and this is what I do? What if you could break that box wide open? What if you could reinvent yourself, not once, but over and over again? Here's a quick pattern to interrupt for you. Have you ever heard someone say, that's just the way I am? It's such a limiting belief, isn't it? As if who you are today is the final version of yourself. Let me tell you something, the most successful, fulfilled, and fascinating people never stop evolving. They stay unpredictable by refusing to settle into a fixed identity. And you can do the same. But let's address the elephant in the room. Staying unpredictable can feel lonely at times. Not everyone will understand your choices, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's a sign that you're breaking free from the expectations that hold so many people back. Think about it. Do you want to live a life that's dictated by what others expect of you, or do you want to carve your own path, even if it means walking alone for a while? Now, let's talk about the power of unpredictability in relationships. When you're predictable, you become easy to take for granted. People stop noticing you, stop appreciating you, because they think they already know everything there is to know about you. But when you stay unpredictable, you keep the spark alive. You remind people that there's always more to discover about you. And that sense of curiosity is magnetic. But staying unpredictable isn't just about keeping others interested. It's about staying interesting to yourself. How often do you surprise yourself with what you're capable of? How often do you push past the limits of what you thought you could do? Staying unpredictable means taking risks, trying new things, and embracing the unknown. It's about saying yes to opportunities that scare you, not because you're fearless, but because you know that growth lies on the other side of fear. Here's another thought to keep you hooked. What if predictability isn't just boring, but dangerous? When you fall into predictable patterns, you stop questioning, stop challenging, stop growing. It's like being on autopilot, going through the motions without really living. But when you stay unpredictable, you stay awake, you stay engaged, you stay alive. And let's not forget the role of creativity. Staying unpredictable is a creative act. It's about finding new ways to express yourself, to solve problems, to connect with others. It's about refusing to settle for the obvious answer or the easy path. Imagine approaching every situation with the mindset of, how can I do this differently? How can I make this moment unforgettable? That's the kind of energy that changes lives not just your own, but everyone you encounter. Now, let me leave you with a cliffhanger. What if the life you've always dreamed of, the excitement, the passion, the fulfillment is waiting for you on the other side of predictability? What if the only thing standing between you and that life is your willingness to take a leap, to surprise yourself, to stay unpredictable? Picture this: you're gripping a rope so tightly that your hands start to ache, the fibers digging into your skin. The harder you pull, the more resistance you feel, and yet you refuse to let go. Why? Because somewhere deep down, you believe that holding on is your only way to stay in control. But here's the paradox. What if the very act of holding on is what's keeping you stuck? What if letting go of control is the key to finding peace, clarity, and even power? Think about that for a moment. How much of your energy is spent trying to micromanage every detail of your life, trying to force outcomes that refuse to be forced? Control feels safe, doesn't it? It gives the illusion of order, predictability, and security. But the truth is, life is inherently unpredictable. No matter how carefully you plan, how tightly you hold on, there will always be factors beyond your control. And that's terrifying, isn't it? The idea that no amount of effort, planning, or worry can guarantee the results you're chasing. But here's where the excitement comes in. What if, instead of resisting the uncertainty, you leaned into it? What if you allowed life to unfold in ways you couldn't predict, but might ultimately be even better than anything you could have planned? Let me ask you something. How often does your need for control lead to frustration, anxiety, or even conflict? Think about the last time something didn't go the way you wanted. Did you spend hours replaying it in your mind, trying to figure out where it went wrong? Did you blame yourself, or worse, someone else? Control doesn't just rob you of peace, it can also damage your relationships. When you're constantly trying to steer the ship, you send a message to others that you don't trust them, and that lack of trust creates distance. Now, let's flip the script. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means recognizing the difference between what you can influence and what you can't. It's about focusing your energy on the things that matter and releasing the rest. Imagine the freedom that comes with that. Instead of carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, you're free to focus on what truly aligns with your values, your purpose, your joy. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Have you ever tried to control something as simple as falling asleep? The harder you try, the more elusive it becomes, right? That's because some things can't be forced, they can only happen when you create the right conditions and then let go. The same principle applies to so many areas of life: love, success, happiness. You can't force them, but you can create the space for them to flourish by letting go of the need to control every detail. But let's be honest, letting go of control is scary. It requires trust, not just in others, but in yourself and in the process of life. And trust doesn't come easily, especially if you've been let down before. Maybe you've told yourself, if I don't take charge, everything will fall apart. But what if that belief is holding you back? What if by clinging to control, you're actually blocking the flow of opportunities, connections, and possibilities that could transform your life? Think about this: some of the greatest breakthroughs in history happened because someone let go of control and embraced uncertainty. They stepped into the unknown not because they were fearless, but because they knew that staying in control meant staying stuck. What if you approached your own life with that same mindset? What if you saw every challenge, every setback as an invitation to let go and trust that something greater is on the horizon? Here's another perspective to consider: letting go of control doesn't mean chaos, it means flow. Think about a river. The water doesn't try to control the rocks, the bends, or the currents. It simply flows around them, finding its way with ease and grace. And yet, it's incredibly powerful. That's the kind of power you tap into when you let go of control, the power of adaptability, resilience, and inner peace. Let's talk about fear for a moment. Fear is often at the root of our need for control. We're afraid of failure, rejection, uncertainty. But here's the twist: fear is a compass. It points us toward the areas where we have the most to learn, to grow, to heal. What if, instead of trying to control your fear, you leaned into it? What if you saw it as a guide, not an enemy? Letting go of control also opens the door to creativity and spontaneity. When you're not rigidly attached to a specific outcome, you give yourself the freedom to explore, to experiment, to discover new possibilities. Think about the last time something unexpected turned out to be better than you could have imagined. That's the magic of letting go. It allows life to surprise you in the best possible ways. But let's not sugarcoat it. Letting go of control is a practice, not a one-time decision. It requires awareness, patience, and a willingness to face the discomfort of uncertainty. There will be moments when you're tempted to revert to old patterns, to tighten your grip, to try and force things to go your way. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep coming back to the question: what am I holding on to and why? Now, let me leave you with a cliffhanger. What if the very thing you're holding on to, the plan, the outcome, the relationship, isn't what's meant for you? What if by letting go of control, you're not losing anything but making room for something even greater? What if the life you've been striving so hard to create is waiting for you to simply let go and trust? So as you reflect on everything we've explored, ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you released the need to control every outcome? If you trusted yourself and the process enough to let go? True power lies not in forcing life into submission, but in embracing its flow, knowing that uncertainty holds infinite potential for growth, joy, and transformation. By letting go, you free yourself to experience life fully, to welcome opportunities you couldn't have planned, and to step boldly into a future where you are no longer confined by fear, but empowered by trust.